All right, let's jump right into it. Do you ever feel like your focus is just constantly under attack? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today we're going to break down a really powerful framework from a therapist for building what he calls an architecture of sanity. Basically, a way to find some peace in a world that feels totally designed to distract you. And wow, this quote, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's so visceral because it just feels true. You know what I'm talking about. Every little notification, every ping, that endless scroll, each one is like a little bite out of your attention. It's become the background noise of our lives, and believe me, it is taking a serious toll.
And all of this leads us to our first big idea, the fragmented self. The source material pulls this incredible line from The Hobbit to describe it, feeling like butter scraped over too much bread. You know that feeling? It's that sense of being stretched so thin, where your soul just feels diluted and totally drained by all the constant demands.
So here you can see the two states we're really talking about, side by side. Over on the left, that's the goal, right? The whole self. You're centered, you're intentional, you feel present. But then there's the right side. That's the reality for so many of us, isn't it? The fragmented self. You're scattered, just reacting to things all day, and you're just completely drained. So be honest, which side feels a little more familiar on a random Tuesday afternoon?
And there's actually a clinical term for this. It's called the drift. This is what happens when we stop making active, intentional choices, and instead, we just react. We react to whatever comes our way, the next email, the latest news alert, the social media feed. And this leads to something psychologists call ego depletion. The basic idea is that your willpower, it's a finite resource, like a gas tank. And our modern world seems perfectly designed to empty that tank before you've even had your mid-morning coffee.
Okay, so if the problem is this modern fragmentation, this drift, where on earth do we find the solution? Well, you might be surprised to hear that the answer isn't some new productivity app. It's actually a much older tradition.
I know, it kind of sounds like the start of a riddle, right? What could a monk living 1,500 years ago possibly teach us about our relationship with our phones? Well, as it turns out, a whole lot, actually. The kind of chaos they were facing back then has some really startling parallels to the chaos we're all swimming in today.
And this is where we get to the central metaphor for what these monks were actually doing. It's just a brilliant image. Think about a grapevine. If you just leave it on the ground, what happens? It becomes this tangled, knotted mess that rots and never produces any fruit. But if you give it a trellis, a structure to climb on, suddenly it thrives. It can breathe. It flourishes. And that is the core idea of what's called a rule of life. It's not about restriction. It's about providing the exact structure you need in order to grow.
So this guy, Saint Benedict, he wrote his famous rule during the absolute collapse of the Roman Empire. We're talking about a time of just immense chaos and uncertainty. Sound a little familiar? His rule wasn't about punishment at all. It was a rhythm for living. It's famously summed up as ora et labora, which just means pray and work. It gave life that trellis, that structure, a balance for the soul, mind, and body, right when the world felt like it was completely falling apart.
Okay, that's the history. So how do we build our own trellis today? This next part breaks it down into 3 really practical habits you can start using to create your own personal sanctuary of time. All right, step 1, the morning guard. Super simple but not easy. No screens for the first 30 minutes of the day. Think about it. If you check your phone first thing, you've basically handed your agenda for the day over to a bunch of strangers. Next, step 2, the sacred no. This is where you choose and protect 3 non-negotiable priorities for yourself. And finally, step 3, embrace contradiction. This is huge. It means your rule isn't about being perfect. It's a framework that is strong enough to hold the reality of your messy, totally imperfect life.
And I absolutely love this image for the sacred no. The idea is that you have to protect them like a dragon guarding gold. That just perfectly captures the kind of fierce intentionality you need. Because let's be real, you can't be everything to everyone. And learning to say a sacred no is what actually frees you up to say a meaningful yes to the things that truly matter.
Now here is maybe the most crucial point of all. You will fail at this. You're going to break your rule. You're going to check your phone first thing in the morning, and that is totally okay. The source calls this idea clinical grace. Your rule isn't supposed to be a weapon you use to beat yourself up. It's a home base. It's a structure you can always return to whenever you get lost.
So we've covered the what and the how. Now let's dig into the why. Why does this actually work?
because the mental and even the spiritual benefits of having this kind of structure are, well, they're surprisingly profound.
Just take a look at this. This shows one of the biggest, most immediate benefits, a massive reduction in what's called decision fatigue. See that bar on the left? That's life without a rule. Your brain is just constantly making these small, draining decisions all day long. But with a rule, a lot of those choices are already made for you. You don't have to debate whether or not you'll go for a walk. The rule has already decided. And this frees up an incredible amount of mental energy for the stuff that actually matters.
And get this. Here's a fascinating little piece of history. Mechanical clocks, they were actually popularized by monks. They needed them so they could wake up at the right time for prayers. I mean, think about the irony there. A tool that was created specifically for devotion has now become our #1 instrument of stress. A rule of life is all about flipping that script. It's about reclaiming technology and making the clock a servant to our values, not the master of our anxiety.
And all of this brings us to our final and honestly our most powerful idea. Adopting a rule of life isn't just some cute self-help trick. In the world we live in right now, it's actually a profound act of rebellion. It's like a declaration of independence for your soul.
The source doesn't pull any punches here. It puts it bluntly with a little dose of what it calls therapist talk. You are going to die. I mean, that's just a raw truth. Our time here is finite. It is the one resource we can never, ever get back. And facing that fact isn't supposed to be morbid. It's supposed to be clarifying. It raises the stakes for how we actually spend our days.
Because when you really put all these pieces together, you start to see that the cost of living in the drift is just enormous. This constant fragmentation of our attention, it's not just an inconvenience. It is a quiet, low-grade theft of our lives. It's happening one notification at a time while we're still here, still breathing.
And so, we're left with this final, fundamental question that a rule of life really forces you to answer. Is your time just a commodity to be sold to the highest bidder? Or is it a gift to be stewarded? Is it something to be mined by others for their own profit? Or is it a sacred trust for you to protect? Ultimately, that choice is yours.